Good evening and welcome on behalf of the Longest 40 to an event that's been sponsored by Perfect Memorabilia East Coast for tonight's live Q&A with Craig Brown, CBE. My name's Callum Smith and it's a pleasure to welcome you tonight and we look forward to all your questions, so please get them in early. I'm sure it's going to be a busy evening. But tonight we're going to also remember in the Scotland's World Cup opening game 22 years ago, 10th of June 1998, 80,000 fans packed into the Stade de France and a TV audience of 500 million people playing against the football minnows from Brazil. However, here's a recap on our guests' achievements. Well, a playing career that started with Rangers, Dundee and Falkirk. Then moving on to a managerial career starting in 1977 with Clyde, winning 2 Division 2 titles. Then going on to 1986, taking charge of the Scotland under-21 team and also becoming Andy Roxburgh's assistant manager as well. And then obviously we go on to the 1993 where Craig then taking the role of Scotland manager, guiding the nations to the Euro 96 finals and the World Cup final stages in 98. So good evening, Craig.
Evening, Callum. Evening, folks.
Hi, how are you tonight?
Yes, I'm good tonight. Thank you. Looking forward to the chat.
Good. So firstly then, we're starting to come out of lockdown. Anything that you want to share with us about stuff that you've learned about yourself over the last 2 or 3 months? What you've been up to?
I've learned I'm quite impatient, you know. You get very bored at times, but you know, I've been doing plenty of gardening, farming, you know, and I've been quite busy. But without football, it's not the same. And of course, we've seen old games, former games, but they're, you know, we've seen them several times over the years, so it's not quite the same. And
yeah,
I'm therefore a bit frustrated. I think most people in football are. They're desperate to get back to action again.
Yeah. So are you catching up with any box sets then on TV at all?
Sorry?
Are you catching up with any boxed sets on TV? Is there anything that you've been watching?
Not specifically. I've just been watching the former games and from international games. From Euro 96, we've seen these games. I've seen Scotland, England, I don't know how often. And
well, yeah. I mean, I was just going to come on to that because you know we've been seeing and enjoying the reruns of the tournament games shown over the lockdown. I mean, you know, you must look at these games, and you know, is there any games in particular where you think, you know what, if I'd done this, you know, is there a sliding door moment at all in any of the games? Key decisions.
I think, Callum, I've got to be honest and say, in almost every game, you say, I wish I had done this, I wish I had done that. You know, obviously, Euro 96 was a major disappointment. You know, I wish I had, you know, made a substitution early and things like that in the last game when we needed another goal against Switzerland. But, you know, the easiest team to pick is a hindsight team. And, you know, you think, well, I should maybe have played Ali McCoist from the start in every game. And I should have taken Ali McCoist to the World Cup, you know, because he's a scorer. But, you know, that's one of my regrets when we're talking about the current campaign coming. I didn't put Ali in the squad to go to the tournament in France that we're talking about. And I make no bones about it. That was a mistake. Although he wasn't the sharpest at that time for Rangers. But he should still have been there because he's capable of scoring. And he said to me, I'll always score against a Scandinavian team. And you're playing Norway. You know? he didn't, I wouldn't say he begged me to go, but when I was speaking to him, and I didn't phone him or text him, the guys I wasn't taking, and that's the hardest job in football, to say to someone like McCoist and Stuart McCall, I met them both and I spoke to them face to face and said that you know, I wasn't going to include them in the group. And it was a hard decision. Maybe it was justifiable, but with hindsight, I think I should certainly have taken Ali McCoist.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, I've been looking at these tournaments, and I personally can remember, you know, the first tournament Scotland were involved in, that was 74 in Jenny, and it just felt, you know, every couple of years we'd be there, we'd be doing something, you know, we'd be following the team. But you know, you're the last manager to have taken Scotland to the finals. It seems such a long time ago, but you know, and I'm sure been asked this question plenty of times, but why do you feel we're now just falling at these stages of getting to the, you know, the final stages?
I've got to say, in all honesty, I'm not blaming the manager in any instance. I think we haven't got the quality of player that I had. The players I had were playing at a far higher level, and many of them obviously playing at the top level in England. When I was with the Scottish team, we could get 3 players from the champion team of England, and one of them couldn't get a game for the Scotland team, and that was Billy McKinlay. Blackburn won the English Championship, and we had Colin Henry and Kevin Gallagher and Billy McKinlay. Now, prior to that, when I was working with Andy, we had 3 from Manchester United. We had Jim Leighton, we had Brian McClare, we had Gordon Strachan. These guys were at the top of the tree in England. Now, when you look down, we've now maybe got Tierney's gone down to, and Robertson, the 2 fullbacks. But we haven't got the quality of player. And Celtic and Rangers, in my time as the manager, were getting to European finals. So it's the quality of player that we're having to deal with just now is not quite as good as it was in the past. And I mean, I'm the luckiest guy in football. I was at 5 major tournaments with Scotland. Sir Alec took me to Mexico. That was the start. And I was at 2 other World Cups. I went to Italy as assistant with Andy, and then to France in '98. So 3 World Cups. And Scotland's only ever been to 2 European Championships, 92 and 96. And I'm fortunate I was at both. So I'm the luckiest guy in football. And I've been to 5 major tournaments with Scotland. And people say to me, we're not getting there again. And I didn't realise at the time how lucky I was.
Yeah, sure.
we were. I mean, I actually resigned because I was a bit embarrassed that we hadn't qualified, and I was quite ashamed that. Now, when I think back, and a lot of folks said to me, "You're daft, because you're bound to fail sometime." But I was quite upset, and I thought, I've been 8 years in this job. I think it's time for a fresh face, and I'm sure it was, and I did the right thing, I think. But it was out of embarrassment not qualifying.
Yeah. I'm sure there'd be a few argue against that, to be fair, Craig, because I mean, looking at your stats, 70 competitive games, 34 wins, and a few more draws chucked into that. We look at what's happened, in the past.
Well, I had 70 games, and then 50 of them weren't beaten.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And we're talking about the Euro '96 and the World Cup '98. I'm very pleased to say that in 10 qualifying games for each tournament, we lost only 3 goals. Now, that was the basis on which a team is formed, a good, solid defence. And people said you were very defensive. I never, ever played without 2 strikers. The house style that we used was a 3-5-2, and therefore we always had 2 strikers. So I don't accept the fact that we played defensive football. But we were very, very good defensive, and it was a 3 at the back, and we had 2 brilliant goalkeepers, unbelievable goalkeepers, Andy Gorham and Jim Leighton. And Leighton, if you take Leighton's stats, you've got to get this off my shoulder right away here. Jim Leighton's stats. Jim had 91 caps, and he had 45 clean sheets. Now that is quite remarkable. If he was the goalkeeper of Italy, or Germany, or France, or some of these big nations, they'd think that was fantastic. He was the Scotland keeper. Anyway, I'm doing enough of the, of the justification. But what I'm trying to say is that we had a team that didn't lose goals, and it helped us to get through.
Yeah, sure. Well, look, the questions are going to start coming in now, and we can come backwards and forwards on some other stuff that hopefully we can get the time to speak about. But first question's in from Scott Walker. Hi, Craig, hope you're well. Who was your biggest influence in management and the best player you ever worked with?
Well, obviously, the biggest influence was when I was a player. Bob Shankly was my manager at Dundee, and Bob was a wonderful, wouldn't say tactician, but a wonderful football manager. His knowledge of football was incredible, and I loved every word he said. His brother became more famous, but Bob won the league for Dundee, and he got to the semi-final of the European Cup. So he was a big influence in me as a player. When I went into management, I was very fortunate that my pals were better managers than I was. And these guys like Alec Ferguson, with whom I played, I've got to remember to call him Sir Alec, played with him in the Scottish youth team. And, guys like Sir Alec and Walter Smith, these were very, very good. And I was assistant to a superb manager. And it'll surprise you when I tell you there are 3 McLeans. There's Willie, Jim and Tom. And I was assistant to Willie at Motherwell as a young guy. And Willie was an outstanding manager, I felt. And the 3 McLeans, arguably the most knowledgeable football men in Scotland for years. And to work with Wooly was an education for me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and talking about, the best player that you've worked with as a manager, when you're taking squads, for a few weeks away at a time, do you look for an influencer or what type of character, and who would you put forward as that?
Well, obviously the best player I've been in the dressing room with, I wasn't the manager, I was the assistant manager. Without doubt, was Kenny Dalglish. When I got the assistant manager's job with Scotland, Kenny was still, I think he was about 101, 102 caps at the time. And he was unbelievable. And, I always thought watching him, not from being close at hand in the training ground or in the dressing room, but he was a magnificent footballer. After that, there have been many very, very good players I've dealt with, but Kenny was, I think, head and shoulders above every player that I've been in the football dressing room with. But, the guys like in the 98 squad, it was full of top quality players, the Lamberts, the Collins, the Henrys, these guys, a back three, Calderwood, Henry and Boyd. And I'm surprised a lot of people say to me, who's your favourite player? Now, maybe not just and I often say Tom Boyd. And they say, why? I said, he had 53 caps without ever calling off. If he turned up with a bruise or a swollen ankle, do you want me to play? Yeah, I would like you to play. We need you. We're playing Russia, Kanchelskis. You're fast. You can do Kanchelskis. And Tommy would say, certainly. There's no question about saying I've got a wee sore injury here, a pain there. Now, so Boyd, but the attitude of all the lads that I dealt with in the main was top class. I mean, that back three, Calderwood, Henry and Boyd were invincible.
Yeah, and I guess, when you look at that Brazil game in particular, so unfortunate that it was an OG that kind of Boyd scored as well, wasn't it?
It was. That the opening game in World Cups prior to that, I think that's the highest scoring opening game in the 32 years. 8 World Cups opening game.
Right. Okay.
And apparently everything's so cagey in an opening game. And and I knew the statistics, and the statistics said that if you get a goal in the opening game, it's quite a surprise. We lost 1 in 3 minutes, so I was looking for a hole to jump into the side of the pitch, but.
What if you're taking that team out to face Brazil? I mean, what's the final couple of minutes that you have with the players before you're going out? What are you trying to get over to them?
Well, I think the final, a bit of calmness is needed. What we needed in that event, because there was huge pageantry before the game. There was a band out on the pitch. There was the opening ceremony before our game, and that upset the warm up a bit. We were allowed on the pitch to warm up, but we don't have part of it. And I'm not making that as an excuse, but it didn't help the start of the game for us because, they used to have a very thorough warm-up.
Yeah.
But the setting was unbelievable, and the build-up and everything surrounding that game, was quite spectacular,
Yeah,
We turned up in the kilt, and that really took a trick. The fans loved that, and even the Brazilian fans applauded us. So, I would love to relive that again without the responsibility of having to try and get a result with the team. But, I was quite calm, to be honest, and I was proud of the turnout of our team. Every player singing the anthem, every player immaculately turned out with the shirt inside the shorts. And, the easy thing to do is the things you can control. You can say to them, we don't put tape around their socks, we put the shirts in. Now, international players, you just say it once and they do it. And I really mean that. But if I could say something, Callum, something that disturbed me, I was at 3 World Cups, and in every World Cup, we lost the best player that Scotland had. And when we went to Mexico, the best player we had was Kenny Dalglish, and Kenny was unfit and couldn't go to Mexico. When we went to Italy, arguably at the time, the best player in Scotland at that time on form was Davy Cooper. And Davy Cooper failed the fitness request from Andy Roxburgh and couldn't go. And also John Robertson also failed. So we had 2 very good strikers for the Italy World Cup and they couldn't go. And then when I've got the job and we go to play in Paris in France, Gary McAllister gets injured playing for Coventry. So again, arguably our best player So Scotland's been really unlucky. 3 World Cups that I've been at, and in each occasion, you could argue the 3 best players we had weren't fit to go.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and is it true? Because I did read that, you know, prior to the opening fixture, the stadium was full at least 2 hours before the kickoff as well in Stade de France.
Yeah, well, it was. We were, you know, the instructions are you must be there 90 minutes before the start. That's an official instruction from FIFA, and we were there, you know, about 100 minutes before the start, you know, nearly 2 hours before it, and the stadium was almost full at that point.
Yeah.
And when the players went on to have a look at the ground, you know, we had trained there the day before, but we went to have a look at it in the kilt. It really took a trick. Everyone was applauding. All the Brazilian fans applauded the lads, and the lads responded. So it was quite a spectacle. Hello.
Hi there. Yes, I can hear you.
I didn't hear you. It went quiet there. So.
Yep, we're okay now. Yep.
Yes, I'm hearing you now, Callum.
Excellent. Sorry, I do apologise for that, Craig. So next question coming is from Jamie Watt. Hi, Craig. You've seen the game change immensely in your lifetime. What are your thoughts on the modern game in terms of salaries that the players are commanding, the celebrity pressures and the players' attitudes?
Well, I don't grudge a sportsman at the top money that they're getting, but I think, you know, in England in particular, I've heard the word used. I'm not going to use the word, but I've heard the word obscene, the amount of money that the top players get. I mean, it's out of all recognition compared with when I was a young boy. I went to Glasgow Rangers as a young boy, and the first team there get £20 a week. Now, I'm giving my age away, which I think most people know, but that was 1958. They get £20 a week, and there was a wage cap, there was a wage limit down in England, and then Johnny Hayes at Fulham had a court case, I think, and they got the wage cap lifted. And then when the wage cap was removed, Rangers got a £2 a week rise, and they went to £22 a week. And my pal in Hamilton that I lived in with, Bobby Shearer, was the captain, and he bought a new Zephyr Zodiac, top of the range Ford car, because he got another £2 a week. So now it's quite unbelievable the salaries that they're getting. Not so much out with the old firm in Scotland; they're modest enough, but down south, the money's at a wash. I think Sky responsible for a lot of the income, and the players are benefiting from that. I don't grudge them it, but if it's there, they're getting it, and good luck to them.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, just talking maybe on some topical matters at the moment, but you've heard about, obviously, the proposals for league reconstruction. Currently 2 proposals, and possibly the one that's maybe getting favoured at the moment is the proposal that Rangers are putting forward. And that is obviously, you know, putting 4 more teams in the league, certainly at the lower level, at Division 2 level. And that's, you know, the B teams, and also Brora and Kelty as well. But, you know, and I think a lot of the kind of rhetoric that the Rangers are putting forward is that we need to improve young Scottish players to kind of, you know, get them used to playing first team football. Would you agree with that? And do you think that's good for the game?
I think so, yes. I do agree that, but I think they're talking about having Colt teams maybe in the bottom league, you know, and playing against the professional teams. I think it could be argued that that's a wee bit selfish, but you see, when you look abroad and you look particularly in Spain, they do that, and they're very successful there at the top level. So, I mean, there's arguments for almost every possibility that's been discussed. There are arguments for each one, and I think, you know, they've got to sit down and make a decision. I'm a has-been, but I think Celtic won the European Cup, and you know that of the 11 players who played, 10 of these boys played in junior football. They played junior football. In fact, the guy that scored the winning goal, Stevie Chalmers, was 23 before he went to Celtic and was playing for Ashfield Juniors. Now, it's now become a situation where you've got to join a boys' club and go through that kind of route to the top. And I didn't honestly see an awful lot wrong with what was happening in the past, where they played at school or the youth team, the local youth team. And Alec Ferguson phoned me when I was the Clyde manager. He says, I'm disbanding Aberdeen Boys Club in Glasgow. I'm disbanding it in Edinburgh. I'm disbanding it in I'm keeping one team in Aberdeen only, but they had an Aberdeen Boys Club in Glasgow and in Edinburgh. And he said, I'm stopping it because I'm just going to leave the boys with their own youth team. And we'll bring them in for extra training to Pittodrie. And in the school holidays, we'll bring the good boys we've identified in Glasgow and Edinburgh. But, you know, he stopped running these boys club teams now. And the boys played with their youth team in Aberdeen, where I am now. You know, they would play with Dice Boys Club or Cooter or some of these local teams, Albion Boys Club. And then Aberdeen would sign them. But they took Willie Miller up from Glasgow, and Willie went to play for Peterhead, and that was equivalent to playing junior. So, and the Lisbon Lions, when you think of them, now, what was wrong with that? I just don't quite understand what was wrong. They were playing against men when they were boys, but they were playing junior football. And now and I think UEFA have something to do with it, because you can't get a license to play in Europe unless you confirm that you're running so many teams at different age levels.
Okay.
And I think you've got, so I'm going on and on here, but I don't want to be distracted. But, you know, I feel strongly about certain things, but I try and keep my mouth shut because I'm, you know, yesterday's man.
No, not at all, Craig. And what you're saying is very valid. And obviously, you know, I've seen you a couple of times up at Cove Rangers as well. When we visited a couple of times up there, don't mention the first time that we met, because that was the first game of the season. But you know, there is now a pyramid system in place. You know, and
Callum, are you going to tell the folks the game we're talking about?
Yeah, Cove City, Edinburgh. Cove Rangers in Edinburgh City. However, that was
a narrow defeat for Jim Jeffrey and you. Because
you were hunting him out. I know that, and he did make a sharp exit.
He did. He left hurriedly, and I actually phoned him afterwards. I had a good, lovely chat with Jim, whom I think the world of, and we had a good blether. But he was up there and he went away sharp, actually just before the end, and it was only 5 at that time. So but, you know, I see Cove Rangers, I look at some Lowland League games. My grandson plays for Stirling University, so I go and see them, and they're a good team of young lads doing very well. And when last season they were 2 up at half-time against Kelty, I was delighted. But naturally, Kelty got back and Barry Ferguson got an equaliser. It was 2 each. Yeah. But, you know, the standard in the Lowland League impresses me. And obviously the standard in the second division, where I see the Cove games, is good as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, on to our next question. This is from Kev Rooney. Thanks, Kev. Hi, Craig. Which club team, did you enjoy managing most?
Well, would you believe that I enjoyed managing them all? I was very fortunate. I had 9 years with Clyde Football Club, and that was part-time. And it was a terrific experience with Clyde, and the lads were terrific. Then I've been lucky enough to be the manager at Motherwell, and I have a very, very great affection for Motherwell Football Club, because I was assistant manager at Motherwell way back before I went to Clyde even, you know, and Willie McLean was the manager. I enjoyed it there, and I was manager at Preston North End. It's a terrific club at Preston. So there's not one of the managerial jobs I had that I did not like. But probably the club, the Aberdeen Football Club, is the city club up there. Everyone in the city, apart from the renegades who support the Old Firm, you know, everyone up there is behind the team, you know, and very supportive. And even when I was the manager there, and you know, if we didn't do outstandingly well, although when I went, we had to get from the bottom of the league into respectability. But you would meet an old dear in the supermarket and she'd say, "Hard luck, son, that was a good performance." You know, everybody was supportive in Aberdeen. So yeah, I've got to say, there's not one job at a club that I did not like. Maybe if you're asking me, Aberdeen, the response there and the goodwill is exceptional in the city of Aberdeen. Yeah,
thanks. Yeah. Next question in from Ian Meikle-John, good Edinburgh City supporter. Hi, Craig. Do you think Do you think if you had a fully fit Duncan Ferguson in attack for more than his 7 caps, you'd have made a big difference to the way Scotland played? And would you have partnered him? And who would you have partnered him with?
Well, if I'm going to give an honest answer here, I don't think it would have made a huge difference. The reason being, I think he played 5 games for Scotland, and we didn't. Not only did Duncan not score, we didn't score. You know, although I remember, his first game against Germany at Ibrox, it was a friendly match, and he had a wonderful hitch kick, which just skiffed off the top of the bar. If that had gone in, it would have been marvellous. Now, I had him in the under-21 team, and he was a marvellous exponent there. He could almost bully the other under-21 countries because of his presence. But it wasn't just his ability or his height and strength. It was his ability with the ball is good. He's got very good touch, Duncan. He could play. But I think it's a mistake to think that if we had Duncan up front, we would have been all that much better. I mean, I remember the game we played, Estonia, the rearranged game in Monaco. A wee centre-back from Estonia out-jumped him and headed. I mean, I was so confident in that game that we would win the game. But it was a draw, 0-0, and Duncan didn't score. And in fact, he didn't get a sniff because the centre-back of Estonia out-jumped him. Now, I've seen him playing for Everton. And by the way, I saw him at Old Trafford. He went out and he headed. I don't know who at the back now. Pallister and who's the other one? Bruce. The two, but he out-jumped them and headed a magnificent goal against Manchester United away from home at Old Trafford. And I'm saying this is the answer to Scotland. But I'm afraid, much as though he tried, and I like him as a decent big fella, Duncan, but I'm not going to say that he would have transformed Scotland.
Sure, but now he's carving his way as a coach now as well. You'll see him often standing on the touchlines at Everton. What do you think his style of coaching? Do you speak much with the?
No, I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know him as a coach. But he's a big, likable guy. And he's got a good sense of humour. I had an issue with him at the under-21 team. I had to do an unusual thing. I had to send him home from a gathering we had at Stirling. We were playing at Perth against Ireland, and I told him no bicycle shorts. In training, I just said the night before, if you've got a bicycle shorts, you're concealing an injury or something. And he turns up this morning with the bicycle shorts. So I said, Duncan, just get down that road and get to the hotel and back to Tannadice. And I phoned Jim McLean and said, I'm sending him back. It was Paul Sturrock answered, and Paul said, that's great. He's needing that. So we played the next night, and I sent him, I said, you do what you're told with us. So away he went, and he knocked at the door we're playing at Perth. Somebody wants to see you, Mr. Brown. He was big Duncan, immaculate, with his suit and everything. I've just come to apologise. So I said, well, your apology is accepted. I'll not hold any grudge, but you were out of order. And it was a simple thing. He just didn't do it. He was told.
Yeah,
and that's unusual. Sure. I must say that was unusual in my time with the Scottish team, my 15 years with the Scottish team. Hardly ever a disciplinary problem.
Yeah, sure. Well, next question is coming in from Colin Campbell. Thanks, Colin. Why do you think Gary McAllister was never properly embraced by the Scottish fans?
I think he was actually, but there's a minority who were giving them a wee bit of stick. The problem with Gary was this. Gary would always try to make the pass a telling pass. Now, I'm not going to name other players, but there are other players who will just play square passes and back passes. In other words, their pass is never intercepted or caught out. They're never caught out. Whereas Gary would try, and very often successfully, try the winning ball, the pass that would create an opening. What do they call it? The assist now. So Gary was, and because he would try a difficult one, it would sometimes not work out, and the fans would gasp, "Oh, McAllister!" Now, I think maybe he would try too hard to make the telling pass, the one that would create the goal. But I don't think generally he was disapproved of. To be honest, I didn't get that feeling. One or two, I had to take him off in a game. He was getting a wee bit hard time because of one or two misplaced passes. But these passes were he was attempting to do the creative telling pass.
Sure.
Now, anybody can do a square pass or a back pass. In fact, Brian Clough, he fined his players if they gave a square pass, and because a square pass is cut out two of your beaten out of position, the one that passes it and the one that it's going to, and you know the square. But I see square passes all the time from players, and they don't get faulted for it.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, so I think Gary. I think most people respected him as a player. I thought he was a great player, and now the guy won 3 trophies in his last year at Liverpool, won the championship for Leeds United. He and Gordon Strachan, when Howard Wilkinson was the manager at Leeds, Gordon Strachan and Gary McAllister were the 2 midfield players who won the championship for them. So no one can tell me that Gary McAllister is not an outstanding or was not an outstanding footballer.
Sure. And when we come to talk about Gary McAllister and maybe we drift back to Euro 96 and, you know, the ball that moved or didn't, or, you know, was Yuri Geller in the sky in a helicopter making it move? But, you know, how did that come about? What did Gary ever say to you, in the dressing room? We see the ball moving clearly, but...
Well, you know, the ball did move, but, you know, it's quite strange. The game was shown on television last week, you know, a replay of the game.
Yep.
And, you know, I haven't spoken to him for quite a wee while, but the phone rang and here Gary phoned me and he says, I've just looked at the game. He says, if I had scored with that penalty, we would have won the game, which I think is true. Now, the interesting thing is this, the next penalty Scotland got, I said to him, you're the penalty taker, are you up for it? He says, yes. So the next one was a very important penalty in Minsk against Belarus.
Mm-hmm.
And we won that game in Belarus 1-0, which was the first game for the qualification for the World Cup to get us to France. Now, and Gary stuck it away. It was quite a very important penalty away from home. And if you get 3 points in your opening game and you're playing away from home, it's a terrific start. So it didn't affect him, but it affected us. And
clearly, I think it was maybe a minute or two later, because I watched the game, as you say, on telly not that long ago, and I think it's maybe only a minute or so, or a passage of play, then, you know, England scored that goal as well that Gascoigne put away.
That's right. Well, they went straight up the other end of the pitch. You know, You know, when you fail with a penalty, the opposition get a terrific lift. You know, and your own players, the heads drop for a minute or two. It takes a minute or two to overcome the disappointment. And, you know, even at the top level, it gave a good lift to the England team. And I agree with Gary. I think we would have won the game. We wouldn't just have drawn the game if we had, because we were beginning to get on top of them at that period in the game. But that's all. That's all yesterday. You know, you got to accept that we lost the game.
Yeah, sure.
And it was a wonderful, I've got to say, Gaza's goal was incredible.
Well, it is a thing of beauty. You're right. Question coming in for Scott Walker. How do you rate Scotland's chances in the Euro playoffs? I was going to say will be coming up, but I'm sure it'll be scheduled soon. Yeah,
well, I'm convinced we'll beat Israel at home. I saw the 2 Israel games recently, the last 2 Israel matches, and I think we're far better than Israel. I'm a bit concerned about an away game in Norway or Serbia. I've got to be honest. Serbia are going to be I saw them in the last tournament there. I watched them and they were very, very good, Serbian team. So in the World Cup. So I think we've got a problem away from home, and the big Norwegian striker could cause us a problem too. So I'm convinced that we'll get to the final of the playoff, and then it's away from home. I know the Tartan Army will be there in great numbers and supporting Stevie Clark, who I think is doing tremendously well. And I'm really getting my fingers crossed. I would love, before my time's up, to go to a major tournament and see Scotland, and there'll be a chance if they get to this one, it won't have to travel too far again. So I'm desperately anxious that we'll qualify, and I think we've at least a 50-50 chance in the final of the playoff, and I'm certain that we'll get to the final of the playoff.
Yeah. And, just go back there. I was just going to ask you, you're the longest serving Scotland manager. But again, something that you quite rightly, we should all be proud of and for the achievements that you've done. But a transition of going back to club management, is that difficult?
No, it wasn't difficult for me, but I thought when I retired, and I genuinely retired when I finished with Scotland, and I thought I'm over 60 now, and that's me finished, and I was happy to be retired. And then out of the blue, I got a request from Preston, and Preston's a very strong Scottish connection at Preston North End, of course, and the chief executive Tony Scholes, who's now at Stoke City. Tony's a super guy. And I was speaking at a dinner in Glasgow, and he was there. And after the dinner, he said, "Well, you don't want to have another go at management?" And I said, "Well, I never thought of it, Tony." And I went there, and it was a super job and a great football club. So I couldn't believe that, you know, in my 60s, I was back as a manager. Then I went to Motherwell when I was 70, I think, the next time. And Sir Alec kept phoning me, Alec Ferguson. Now, Alec was just a year younger than I am, right? We played in the same team, and Alec kept phoning me, "Do you know you're the oldest manager in Scotland?" Then he would phone and say, "You're the oldest manager in Britain." Then he would phone and say, "You're the oldest club manager in Europe, Brown." He says, "What are you trying to tell me?" He says, "Well, you're the oldest." And he says, "Trapattoni saves you, but he's an international manager. So you are the oldest." Now, and the knees were beginning to seize up a wee bit. So when I said to Archie Knox, and Archie had the same problem with his hip, so we both decided we'd say to Stuart Milne, the chairman up at Aberdeen there, we'll finish at the end of the season. And he was very, very gracious, Stuart. He wasn't throwing us out, but he said, "Oh, I understand. 2 weeks after I retired, who retired? Alec Ferguson." Because he would have been he didn't want to be.
You're waiting on your phone call.
So,
on the next question, Craig. Would you call up Billy Gilmour for the next Scotland squad, and do you think he's ready to start?
Well, you know, I think he's before he starts, I think it would be a good idea to call him up and get him in the environment and get him to know the players and to see the routine and get into the feel of it. You know, we were very fortunate. We actually took 6 young players in addition when we went to a tournament, in addition to the squad. You can't do that for a one-off international. But we took 6 young boys, and a lot of these young boys became international players. Guys like Scott Gemmell and Paul Hartley, they went to Euro 96 as young players. Brian O'Neill, guys like that. So this guy, you know, Billy Gilmour, he's playing in the team. He's ready to be, I think, included in the squad. And when he gets in the environment with the international players, the manager Steve will get a look at him and he'll get comfortable. And I thought the games he played, I saw on television, I had seen him playing for Rangers Youth against Aberdeen, and I thought, this is a super boy. Mm-hmm. It'd be wonderful if he came through a la Kenny Dalglish or Gordon Strachan, or a young boy coming through like that. It would be terrific.
Yeah, sure. And finally, the question here for John Brown, which will wrap it up tonight, Craig. But from all your games as Scotland manager, what was your favourite?
Well, I don't think you'll be surprised to hear it was the second leg of the playoff. When the only thing is we only managed to get the 1 goal, that we needed another one. But my favourite game, obviously, it was great to play at Celtic Park, which was a good venue against Latvia to get to the World Cup. That was a great occasion, and the players had to do twice round the pitch to the crowd. But to go to Wembley and be 2 down in the home game and win down there and really should have got at least a draw.
Sure.
That one, to beat England away from home, and we went to Germany and beat them 1-0 away from home as well. So either the Germany game or the England game, I think you beat the old enemy. I've got to admit that that was a special occasion, although it didn't get us into the competition proper.
Sure. Well, Craig, I'd like to thank you for spending some time with us tonight and answering all the questions. And we'll look forward to seeing you again, and I'm sure I'll see you up at Cove as well.
I'm only at Cove when Aberdeen aren't playing that day, you know, but that's my other team up in Aberdeen.
Indeed.
And, enjoy the games. But thank you, and the folks, for the questions, and thanks for having me on your programme. Thank you.
Right. Thanks very much, Craig. Thank you. So I'd like to thank Craig Brown there very much. So again, it's been a great evening. Hope you've enjoyed it. And on behalf of the Longest 40, which has also been sponsored by Perfect Memorabilia East Coast, I'd like to thank you for tuning in, and I'm sure we'll see you again soon. Thanks.